Breaking news now. The body of a young girl found in the trunk of a Tesla has been identified.
Police say a 15-year-old girl was found in pieces in the trunk of singer David's car. Officers say Celeste Rivas' dismembered, decomposing body was discovered inside the car.
The body was identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was, at the time, discovered 15 years old. When she became missing in April of 2024, she was 13.
You find a body, it's connected, it's registered to a vehicle with a celebrity. So it's not like he's being targeted because he's a celebrity. It's an actual crime that led to him. First of all, death notification is the hardest part of the job if you're working in homicide, because you never know what the reaction is going to be.
For 17 months, there were no confirmed sightings, no hard leads, and it's like she vanished, almost.
Hill of Justice is sponsored and produced by Jermaine Delmas Studios.
Welcome to the Hill of Justice. I'm Jerome Hill, and with me is retired Sheriff Victor Hill. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the Hill of Justice whenever and wherever you listen to your podcast, and hit that notification bell on YouTube so you don't miss any of our deep dives. We start today at the time of this recording, September 21st, in the Hollywood Hills of California. A luxury car sits in abandoned for days. At the tow yard, it was towed, and then at the tow yard, a foul odor that no one can place permeates everywhere. Detectives come in, and when they finally pop the front trunk of the Tesla, an over year-long search for a missing girl ends in the most tragic way imaginable. A missing persons case becomes a homicide investigation, and a chart-topping musician is suddenly at the center of a national storm. The body was identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was, at the time, discovered 15 years old. When she became missing in April of 2024, she was 13. And the car? It was registered to David Anthony Burke, the artist the world knows as David, the singer behind the hit Romantic Homicide. Brother, you and I both know that when a celebrity is tied to a case like this, the pressure intensifies by 100-fold. And every piece of evidence, every public statement that is put under a microscope does. And this becomes a masterclass now in how modern investigations are won or lost in the first 48 hours.
You're correct about that. You know, the one thing about this investigation, though, is at least it's organic. You know, a lot of times we see celebrities targeted for crimes because of prosecutors. That's not the case here. You find a body, it's connected, it's registered to a vehicle with a celebrity. So it's not like he's being targeted because he's a celebrity. It's an actual crime that led to him. So that takes half of the craziness out of it. It doesn't take the rest of the craziness that comes with the press and everything else. But at least it's an organic case. It's not a case where someone's being targeted because of their celebrity status, as we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to the car and the celebrity, let's focus on who matters most here. Celeste Rivas. She was last seen on April 5th, 2024 in Lake Elsinore, California. Just to give you some context, where she was discovered at to where she was found, it's about 75 miles. At the time, she was only 13 years old. Her family described her as a beloved daughter and friend, and they've been searching for her for well over a year, and now they're faced with planning a funeral. They set up a GoFundMe, and we'll have a link in our show for anyone who wants to help in the description of that. This is the part that's so tough for law enforcement, and you and I have had to deal with this over and over again, given the death notification and it being so public for a family that's not public figures.
That's true. That's true. And, you know, first of all, death notification is the hardest part of the job if you're working in homicide, because you never know what the reaction is going to be.
Right.
And, and who wants to be the bearer of bad news like that? And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. But like you said, which is a good point, you got a situation where now this family, it's not just the fact that their daughter was murdered, but now it's going to be a very high profile case, and they're going to have to face a lot of media just because of the fact that who actually killed her daughter. And that puts, unfortunately, added pressure on them. And it doesn't make it any easier. It just makes a bad situation worse.
Right. For 17 months, there were no confirmed sightings, no hard leads, and it's like she vanished almost. And for a family, that silence is a unique kind of torture when you go through that. So if you're following this breakdown, what I want folks to do is, when they are thinking and have some compassion for someone who's having this type of sadness, this type of tragedy, because certainly this woman, deserves a ton of justice, and we are about to get that. So, brother, I want to go ahead and start talking about the medical examiner. So, as we know, on the 8th, it was towed to an impound lot, and that's where they discovered her. But it is really the timeline that we really want to take a look at. And a week later, the LA County medical examiner confirms, of course, her identity. But then something that we're used to, but we need to go ahead and speak about, is they put the death as listed as deferred. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk a little bit about what deferred is, so people can have an understanding of what that is in medical terms, and not so much medical terms, but even law enforcement terms.
Well, this unknown and this deferred. Unknown, sometimes they actually have some death was undetermined. The body has gone to the point to where, and usually that's when it gets to the point of skeletal remains. The body was decomposed, so there's still a lot there to work with. So the deferred could mean like you're waiting for toxicology. Like, does anything come back that was in the person's system, if they're still able to get that, any type of drugs or something like that. And sometimes those type of tests take a while to come back. So deferred can mean that they're waiting for some type of laboratory results that could confirm the manner of death, which I think everyone pretty much knows is homicide. But it could also lead to, okay, what kind of homicide? Was it a knife? Was it a gun? Was it strangulation or something like that? So, in my professional opinion, they're probably saying deferred, meaning until they get everything back so they can place everything in order and make the absolute determination of not just the cause of death, which I think it's not a question of was it a homicide. The question is what kind of homicide was it? What was the manner in which death was inflicted?
Right. Because they have to go ahead and rule certain things out, and they got to get tissue samples for analysis. It's not beyond the realm to get an anthropologist involved.
Absolutely.
In that, because you can look at a multitude of things. Homicide is the prevailing part of this whole investigation. Right. Naturally, I believe that there's some reports out there that said that she was dismembered and put into a bag. So you're not going to do that by yourself, right? So,
no, it can be done by yourself. I've had a homicide like that where a person dismembered the person. That's part of the reason why it is done by themselves, because it's hard to carry a body. So a lot of reasons why people dismember bodies is it's easier to carry it, as gruesome as it sounds, in pieces as opposed to carrying a whole body.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You're right about that. I'm not saying detected. You can cut yourself up and put yourself in a bag.
Right.
So that's why it's homicide.
I thought you meant that one person as opposed to two, more than, you said you can't do
that
by yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. Right. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. You're right about that. I mean, but you can't cut yourself up and put yourself in a bag. That's why it's homicide all the way through. There's
Right.
just no two ways about
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And so
It's definitely not suicide. You're absolutely right.
exactly. You rule out suicide right off the bat. I mean, you just can't do that. So,
You rule out everything. You rule
that's
out natural causes. You rule out accidental. All that's ruled out. It's definitely
right.
a
It becomes
homicide.
laser focused. And that's
Exactly.
what we're trying to say.
Exactly.
That at this point in time, it's kind of made it a little bit easier now. We can focus on certain matters because other
Right.
matters of death are out of the realm. So, and that's when science comes. And part of what the deferred is that they're waiting for the science to come back so they can go ahead and even get that into a further laser focus on exactly, as you described, the manner of death.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, brother. He's not in custody yet, correct?
No.
Right.
At this point in time, he is, by his press relations individuals, they are saying that he's cooperating, and even law enforcement is saying he's cooperating.
Right. So that's where you get the politics and the celebrity stuff in, because there are probably people thinking, okay, well, why isn't he in custody? Why is he still walking around? But again, it gets back to what you asked about deferred. They're probably waiting to get everything and make sure they got all of everything in place so that when they do come at him with charges, it'll be rock solid. A lot of people, I know a lot of people, especially the family, are like, hey, I want this guy arrested now, or whatever like that. But I think that's really what's going on right now. I don't think they're hesitating to lock him up because of who he is. I think they just want to make sure they got all their ducks lined in a row.
For sure. So that's the internet's job, right? The internet they go ahead and race ahead about these particular theories. The police are forced to be slow, methodical, which brings us to another question we get all the time. Why are police so tight-lipped? And we tell them it's because silence is a strategy. We use this as a strategy. Every detail you withhold from the public becomes a test for a potential suspect. If someone comes forward, you can ask them things that no other person, or maybe only the killer, would know. And there's more to that than that. We're just being very general. And their answers, or their lack of, can build or break a case.
Well, that's true. Everybody gets this transparency thing confused with law enforcement. And there's a lot of law enforcement that, in all honesty, you can't be transparent about until everything is over with. You can't be transparent and say, we get ready to raid a drug house next week, so they know to move the drugs, or be transparent and say, well, we have this person under surveillance. Police work is not too far from intelligence work. I mean, how transparent can the CIA be? But, a lot of people expect law enforcement to be transparent from beginning to end. There's a lot of information that just has to be classified for the safety of victims, the safety of the officers and everything like that, and also to maintain the integrity of the investigation. So the media and a lot of people, they want everything tried in the court of public opinion from beginning to end. But if you really want a solid case, or you really want to get the suspect, there's no way law enforcement can be that transparent. This is not like this is totally different. It's not like it's a tax commissioner's office. You're dealing with crime criminals, you're dealing with killers. And if you're transparent like that in the public, then you're giving the killer everything he needs to get away.
Right. And so let's talk about this that nobody else is talking about, but we're going to talk about it on this show. Let's talk about the silent witness in this case that's actually going to blow this case wide open. And that's going to be the vehicle itself. Of all vehicles that you can go ahead and commit a crime in and have a body inside, this person choose a Tesla. And this is the one vehicle that you probably don't want to do anything like that in. And we'll explain. And it's because it's a Tesla. The car is a rolling computer. It has a treasure trove of data, and it's a luxury one on top of that. So it has all the bells and whistles to this. And this is what it is. It's just a walking footprint of what is going to be able for them to go in and pull up when the car left, when the car arrived. I mean, to the point of who was sitting on each of the seats. It's going to go on and on and on. The GPS that's involved with this, you're going to be able to tell even when that trunk was opened up, when that trunk was closed, what day it was. I mean, right now, whoever did this, you have to understand that they're going to get all that information. You're cooked.
So you want to tell you what that indicates? It indicates that, when I was in homicide, there was two types of killers, organized and disorganized. And organized usually deals with premeditated murder, where you plan how you're going to kill a person. Obviously, this was disorganized and in a heat of passion, meaning something happened, and then in a moment of anger or something, they killed the person. So they're not thinking, okay, hey, I better not do it here, not do it there. And then they had to make it up as they go, ad lib, when it's too late. Because like you said, of all cars they could do it, and they did it in a Tesla. My understanding is that car wasn't reported stolen, correct?
Correct.
Right. So that takes that alibi out of it. Because a lot of people, what they do is they'll commit a crime, and then they'll say it's stolen, and then say, well, whoever did this had to be who stole the car. And of course, even that doesn't work.
Oh, and I'll tell you why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's a luxury vehicle. And guess what the luxury vehicles do? They have those apps.
Right.
And you can track your car.
Yeah.
It's over. Just think of it as this Tesla like this. It's like a Boeing 747. The Tesla has a black box in it. It's recording everything.
Exactly.
I mean, and I just don't think they even record when the doors were opened, And so, all of this is going to be critical, especially when the frunk is what they call it. It's the front portion of the Tesla and has a trunk area. So even with that frunk right there, when it was last accessed, and then the owner has to account for that somehow, some way. He could obviously go ahead and say, I lent it to somebody. Now let's talk about that, Keith. We could go down that rabbit hole. I lent it to somebody to go ahead and use. Well, guess what? We got to go to that person.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm assuming that all this technology in a Tesla is connected to the cell phone, correct?
Oh, yeah. On top of that.
Yeah. Well, that right there takes it out. Let me tell you this. If we go back to the old days, when I first went to homicide, that was before the smartphone came out. And one of the first things they tell you in the homicide class is this. They said, if you could find somebody's little black book, 9 times out of 10, the name and phone number of the killer is in that book. Because most people are killed by people they know.
Sure.
There's stranger on stranger crimes, of course. We see it. But they make up 10% or less of killers. Most people, 90% of people are killed by people they know. Well, that little black book now is the smartphone. Nobody carries a little black book anymore. Everyone carries a smartphone, and everything is in there. These smartphones, if you're not paying attention, can tell you everywhere you've been in the last 30 or 60 days. So it has even more information than just all your contacts in there.
Right.
So you're right. Whoever did this, I think, everybody pretty much has him marked as a suspect, and they may well be correct. I mean, but like you said, whoever did this, just in case it is somebody else, it's going to connect to whoever it is if it's not him. I think we know the percentages as it probably is, but we don't want to assume, because sometimes you just can't tell.
Correct.
So, sometimes it could be someone with access to a car or something like that. Could be. So, and that's probably why they're taking their time to make sure that everything is just right. So it's not jumping to a conclusion and saying, okay, it's you. Because there are circumstances where it looks like it's a particular person and it turns out it's not. We've seen those type of crimes before too.
Right. So you had the body inside this frunk at Hollywood Hills. So the car had to get there somehow. And don't fret yourself about this. The GPS logs are going to be able to create a map of the car's entire journey. And they can go back months and months. Did the car travel to Lake Elsinore, where she went missing? Where has this car been and when? And so this is going to really set up the timeline. And guess what? Once that timeline set up, and this, once that timeline set up, then you start putting people and finding out where they were.
And they create timelines. Like, let's say this house has an alarm system, which most homes do. Mm-hmm. That alarm system tells you what time you left, what time you came. There's a lot of information there. And if you got cameras with it, it shows you coming and leaving at a particular time.
Sure.
So if it coincides with that timeline, there's no way out of it.
Right.
And if it doesn't, there's no way out of that either.
Right. So it's going to be able to tell when was that trunk last opened up. So when you get that timeline, you'll know the date and you'll know the time. You had to put something in there, It could have been before that. You get the whole timeline of that whole thing. Whoever thought that they can go ahead and get away with that is crazy. But let's get into the other part of the Tesla technology that people don't really pay attention to unless you are a Tesla fanboy or you are a part of the technology. Tesla has Sentry mode. And basically that car has cameras all over the place. It's possible that Sentry mode records and detects motion nearby. And it could have filmed someone approaching the car, placing something in the trunk, or wiping it down. Even if it wasn't active. That's the car's internal system that might have even the short-term logs of that. And thus, I'm saying this right now, and I'm sure a lot of audience members don't realize that and don't understand that, but you are cooked. I mean, it's bad times at this point. And that's why this may be, the car may solve this murder. And is the silent witness to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's a may on this one. I think it's a shall.
Yeah.
And this might be one of the most technological homicide solving that we've seen in a while, where everything connected to it deals with computers and black box and cameras and everything like that. And of course, it's going to be some good old fashioned DNA and stuff like that too,
right.
Because
sure.
There's no way for people to have a violent encounter and not have an exchange. I mean, if a red car hits a white car, there's going to be an exchange. There's going to be some red paint on the white car and some white paint on the red car. And the same thing is true of human violence. Two humans, when they exchange some type of violent contact, there's usually going to be some type of exchange. It could be fibers from clothes. It could be hair. It could be whatever, but there's some type of exchange. And of course, we know that exchange can go even deeper than that. If you're talking about sexual assault, where you're talking about the exchange of semen, pubic hair, or whatever, but there's no way for two objects to collide, not even two human objects, and there not be some type of exchange on some level of DNA, hair sample, perhaps the victim scratching and have the flesh of the assailant under her fingernails. All of that has to be checked for.
Correct. And that's where a lot of the gumshoe detective work is going to come in on that end of it. But
never forget, even though all this technology is there and it's great, then there's always got to be the shoe leather, to knocking on doors or talking to who's the last person that saw her, neighbors, whatever like that. That type of police work and technology can never replace.
Right. Technology just enhances things. It always has and always will.
Absolutely.
So you could literally have the suspect on camera and with this case, they would never know and have no idea because they're not really understanding the technology of what is a high-end vehicle like this Tesla and what it brings. But I can tell you this, if that car can remember everything in law enforcement, that's gold. I mean,
Yes.
you are set. It's probably one of those cases where you probably want to ask for and say, I'll take that. I'll take it right off the bat, just because of all the technology that's involved. But you have an understanding when you do cases like this that this will be a much easier sell than anything else. Now, we also have, the internet that is going. They're going as fast as they can to go ahead, not only to assign blame to this musician, but to go ahead and really complicate matters with deep fake pictures of her and him together. There's been articles that have shown that he actually had some pictures with her, and that some sleuths were able to break in to his iCloud and were able to extract pictures of them together and so on and so forth. All this stuff is going to be looked at. But that's what investigators have to deal with in this climate nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. The internet has helped and hurt so many different things. It's a two-edged sword. It's literally a yin-yang two-edged sword. It's a lot of good and a lot of bad. But as the old folks say, you got to take the good with the bad. One thing we haven't discussed that is sad about this whole thing, and I'm not saying it would make it any better if it was a grown woman, but this was a 13-year-old child that disappeared, now 15. The laws differ in different states. In Georgia, 16 is a consent age. When I first got to Georgia, it was actually 14, and the state legislature increased it to 16. I don't know what it is there, but if it was in the state of Georgia, she's not of the age to give consent. She's not of the age to be able to say, I no longer want to go to school. So somebody took advantage of her. Is a kidnapping, even if it was with her consent, even if she ran away and said, this is a person that I want to be with, that does not change anything because she's not old enough to give consent. So you can't be sexually involved with a child and your alibi is, well, she wanted to. She's not old enough to give consent. That's why it's still considered, that's why in Georgia it's referred to statutory rape. You can say, well, it wasn't rape because she consented, but it's statutory rape because you're having relations with a person that's not old enough to give consent to have relations. So, there's a lot of unanswered questions there too. Because is it just her, or are there other young people that were being taken advantage of or held against their will or whatever? That we don't know. If that was the case, after this happened and that person got rid of the body, if there were others, they probably dismantled that too because they knew eventually at some point the heat was going to come. But we can't, overlook the fact that we're talking about a minor child that was dismembered, not an adult woman. Either way, it would have been horrible. That's nothing you do to anyone. But when you think of the fact that someone was ruthless enough to do that to a child, that's what makes this case very sickening.
Right. And we have the other element too. Let's just say, for example, that internet sleuths were able to break into his iCloud and were able to extract photos of them together. Naturally, does it complicate the investigation? It would be for if you got that imagery. But what you could do is go ahead and subpoena his iCloud to see if there's any digital footprints there. And more importantly, if anything was erased from there too. Absolutely. To go ahead and make, because we have deep fakes left and right out there. So was there a possibility of this stuff being out there. And then you got some explaining to do if you are photographed with this person where you live 75 miles away from where she was deemed missing.
Absolutely.
And then how did that communication begin too? So
Very true.
This is stuff that can all be, gathered quite quickly. And if not, it does definitely put them into the center of all this mystery. And the internet does what it does. It's going to go ahead and especially if they have a grievance against you, it's flame on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you can't handle that, from what I understand, from this moment now, he has canceled every tour, and at least his group has, and I would say that is a very good idea.
Yes, absolutely. And to the internet's credit, and there's even documentary to it, they have actually solved crimes. There have been people on the internet that put their wits together and solve crime. I can't remember. It has something to do with cats. I don't want to say the word mess with cats. And that was very interesting how a group of people end up catching a serial killer because he filmed himself torturing a cat. But it turns out that he was actually killing women. But they got together because they were a group of animal activists and end up catching a serial killer for law enforcement when law enforcement wasn't really able to put it together. So, like I said, it's good and bad with the internet. I think the good probably outweighs the bad.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
The public needs to remember that the owner of the vehicle isn't automatically the suspect, and the car could have been borrowed, stolen, and used by someone else. We don't know all these things just yet. You could say with some certain high probability with a luxury vehicle like this that what we're trying to do is separate speculation from fact. We do know that we have a 15-year-old girl who's gone and her family deserves answers. And the question now is whether the data locked inside that luxury car can finally give them justice, and it just might. So that's all the time we have for today on Hill of Justice. We'll continue to follow this case as it develops. We'd like you to go ahead and hit the button and obviously subscribe and share with anyone who you feel as though that needs to hear this. And don't forget to comment your thoughts on today's case too. We'll highlight the best ones below. And you can find the links to Celeste Rivas Hernandez GoFundMe down below and with all of our information too. If you have a tip in this case, please contact the LAPD at their 24-hour anonymous tip line at 877-LAPD-24/7. Or even LA, if you want to stay anonymous and contact LA Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS. We just want to say thanks for watching, and certainly our deepest condolences go out to the Hernandez family.
Absolutely.